All right, we are back, day 6, celebrating our coverage and conversations at the 2025 Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc, aka UTMB, and we have the pleasure of being joined today by Anton Krupicka. Before we get started, though, quick station ID and shout out to our partners, NAC, Norda, Goreware, and Raid for literally keeping the lights on and making all this possible. Go check them out in the show notes of this episode. Tony, how's it going today?
Good. Thanks for inviting me on the pod again, Finn. It's been, what was the last time we talked? Maybe a year ago, I think?
It was...
it was like post-Grindstone last year.
I remember it distinctly because you were the very last conversation we had before my daughter was born.
Oh, wow, really?
And you had just done Grindstone.
Yeah, I think it was like the day after. I remember I was like fully in the fog of like post-100 mile, like really tired. But yeah.
I'm trying to think of what you had just reunited with, or earlier that Kyle Skaggs. Didn't you go visit him down in New Mexico?
Earlier last year, yeah, in 2024, in March of that year, I did a couple 1,000-mile bike ride in Arizona, New Mexico, and he lives down in kind of western New Mexico, I guess. So I visited him along the way. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I think there's a lot that I want to cover today. I think it's going to be super wide-ranging. You mentioned offline that you got here. I mean, we're recording this at 10 a.m. local time. You got in at 9 a.m.?
Well, it's weird. My flight got delayed. I was supposed to get in last night, but so I ended up just getting a room in Geneva last night and then driving up this morning. So, yeah.
And then here with Sportiva?
Yeah. I mean, apparently, I think this has been the case for well over a decade now, but UTMB week is the kind of industry event of the year, I would say. So everybody's here, But I mean, there's several Sportiva athletes who are racing this week. So they have a house there in Les Houches and a booth at the, vendor village or whatever. So, yeah.
How do you, if you look back over the last 10, 15 years, how do you characterize your relationship with this race?
Well, I raced it twice in 2013 and 2014. And then I have been here this week 3 other times, just for various brands. But I've only raced it twice. So my relationship with it was, back in the early teens, it was already well on the North American scene's radar, I would say, because for me it was like Scott and Carl and Hal came over in 2007 and no one finished the race. So that was this and I think Marco Olmo it was like 60. So this 60-year-old dude wins the race and our best guys can't even finish it. It was sort of this humbling thing. And then Kilian won the next 2 years. So, and then Kilian came to the States in 2010. So it was in the consciousness of the ultra running world, in North American ultra running world for sure. But then, and this is something that maybe will get played out this weekend, but in 2010, 11, and 12, the race was altered in various ways by the weather because it's a tumultuous kind of, it's the changing of the seasons here. It starts getting there was snow on the course. There's a whole bunch of rain. A landslide happened in 2010, and they ended up doing 100K. They canceled the race partway through. So what am I saying? So it became a race that was very important to do. So, I came over in 2013 and 2014 and just trying to win it. But yeah.
This might be an absurd question, but you look at someone like Carl and Scott who had success at Hard Rock. Is that a fair comparison to if they had done decently well there, they should have translated over here? Or is there something different about a UTMB runner?
Well,
they're
two very different events.
Why were they exposed here, do you think?
There's so many different factors. It's just, I think there's a couple things though. One, it's really late in the season. I don't know, that in 2007, wasn't that the year Scott won Hard Rock?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
so it's he'd already run Hard Rock, he's pretty worked. So it's just coming in, you have to have, I think, complete focus on it in order to do well. The sport has professionalized so much in the last 15 years that I think athletes in general are just taking it way more seriously. So maybe you have people who can do well at Western States or Lavaredo early in the summer and then still do well UTMB week, but they're probably not racing anything in between either, you know? I mean, 15 years ago, guys were racing all the time, you know? I mean, I remember like 2010 or 2009, like Jeff Rose was racing like every month, you know? It's just like, I'll do a 50K, I'll do a 50 miler. And like, of course he wouldn't do any long runs in training then, but I don't know, it's just kind of crazy to me.
Was it 2010 when Scott moved to Boulder? And that was like the summer that he was dedicated to UTMB?
Yeah, he moved to Boulder summer 2010. I moved there the year before, and he ran UTMB that year. It got shortened. He was in good shape though. We were doing a fair bit of running together that summer. I guess that was the summer I did Western and Leadville. But yeah, maybe 3 or 4 like proper long runs. You know, like 40, 50 milers. Just around Boulder, you know, like Rocky Mountain National Park, Indian Peaks, that kind of thing.
How'd you guys link up?
I met Scott.
Like, did you pitch him to come to Boulder, or like?
No, dude, no. I think so. His now wife Jenny, she went to CU back in the day. You know, she went to college there, and so she had ties to Boulder. She was probably more of a climber before she was a runner, and Boulder is just like a big scene for that, obviously. And so she has a ton of friends that were living in Boulder already. And then, I mean, Boulder is, it's also a running town. Scott's a runner. I don't know. I think you'd have to ask him, but I think that was probably a big factor for them, was just like Jenny's connections there, the outdoor industry's connections there. Yeah. But Scott and I, we met at Outdoor Retailer in 2007, actually. Yeah, in Salt Lake. It's back when it was in Salt Lake. And I went on a run with Scott, Hal, Carl, and Ian Torrance. And that was the first time I met like anyone of any kind of stature in the sport, you know? And I don't know, it was funny. I just remember being like, I mean, I was very young. What was I, 23, 24? And a couple weeks later, I went and won Leadville for the second time. And at the time, it was a fast time for the course. But so I was really fit, and I just couldn't understand like why these guys were like walking up the hills, and like, you know, I was just like, this is what ultra running is, like, what are we doing, you know? It's kind of funny, but yeah.
You guys only got, well, I find it interesting that 2010 Scott comes to Boulder and you get this summer training pretty closely together, but then like that ends up being his last year before he kind of like feels like disaffected from the sport. And then you get, is it just like injury string? Like, was that the last summer that you guys got to train together, like legitimately?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, me, injury string, like I've always had a string of injuries. I've never had like that long of a period of health and running. But Scott, I'm trying to remember what year he was born. He was like, what, late 30s at that point? I think he was just already, he'd been doing it for a long time, since his early 20s, and he wanted to like retire basically, I think. But I think there were a number of factors, like the move to Boulder, they started a family. Scott maybe lost the fire for it a little bit. I don't know. So yeah.
What do you think of that ability to walk away from the sport?
I think that people should be able to like change and evolve and do what they want. Like, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's Scott's choice, like what he does. I feel like his resume is so, like, no one's gonna ever have a resume like Scott. Kilian is the only one, probably. In terms of just like the number of wins at the variety of events, it's crazy. But yeah, so I don't know. So you can't take anything away from his career, is what I'm saying.
Okay, and then coming back to UTMB, this is your first time back in 6 years.
Yes, first time back in the Chamonix Valley. Yeah. I was here for 5 years in a row, I think, 5 or 6 years in a row, and then pandemic happened, and then just haven't been back here since. Yeah.
I was asking you offline to compare Chamonix to Cortina because you were at Lavaredo this past June.
And I've been to Cortina a dozen times. Yeah.
And how do they stack up? And what factors are you prioritizing in that calculus? Well,
it's Italy versus France first, which are two like quite different cultures. but Chamonix is so it's like so touristy that it doesn't even really feel. It doesn't feel like France, which is people are getting angry. But there's as many like Brits here as our French people. Feels like there's a lot of tourism going on, and yeah, as an American, obviously I'm one of them. But in terms of the landscape, man, I have a soft spot in my heart for the Dolomites because I've spent so much time there. Sportiva's from there. But geez, you come in and see the Mont Blanc Massif, and it's imposing. It's a dramatic place. It's like the landscape is violent. It's just like the mountains just erupt out of these sort of like pastoral green sort of rolling hills, and you're just like, wow, okay, these are mountains.
And I didn't realize these are young mountains.
Yeah. I mean, the Alps and the Himalayas are some of the most active and like growing mountains in the world. Just tectonic plates coming together and pushing them up. But yeah.
And then at La Vereda this year, were you doing stuff with the live stream? Like what was?
I did. Yeah, I was on the live stream quite a few times actually. I don't know. I just kind of like do what people tell me to do or ask me to do, and yeah, no real preparation for it. But yeah. But I mean, yeah, I was there. But then also I had like meetings at the Lospo headquarters afterwards that week because they're just kind of they're in another valley over basically.
Do you enjoy being at these events without participating in them, like as an athlete, as a competitor? Like being at La Vereda, being at UTMB, like how's that feel?
Not really. And I don't know if I would really enjoy them as a competitor.
Where's the disconnect for you?
What's that?
Where's the disconnect for you on that?
Well, right now I'm like injured and can't, and so this morning just like driving in here, it's just like, well, I get to look at these mountains, cool. I don't get to like interact or engage with them in any way. It's just, I don't really care about just like looking at a landscape. I want to like be in it, and so with my Achilles, that's just frustrating. So yeah, and then also it's like this week, it's a tough balance because it is fun to connect with the community and, I don't know, see a bunch of people maybe you haven't seen in a while or maybe only see once a year. But at the same time, I'm not looking forward to having the same conversation 1,000 times of like, are you racing, and talking about why I'm not, so yeah.
How long has this year's race been out of question for you?
A little over a month.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. I was mentally really waffling kind of all summer about it. Just other things I wanted to be doing. But then right at the end of July, I started feeling really fit and I got excited about it again. And then like within a week, my Achilles was like, I couldn't do anything. So yeah. There was like 1 week where I was excited about the potential of it, but yeah.
I told you we'd be all over the place. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because you recently talked with Buzz Burrell on a pod, is sort of how your philosophy jives with Buzz's philosophy about the mountains. And like, I know, for example, you would characterize Buzz as more of like the explorer type. Like he likes to sort of be a pioneer and kind of like make something exist out of a mountain range that no one had thought of before. And you're more of like the repetition type.
Ah, okay. Oh,
Talk about like how you guys are still like great friends and you have admiration for him despite sort of like those two competing approaches to the landscape.
I don't think of them as being, I guess they are competing because you have a finite amount of time. Buzz, I think the reason that we get along well is because Buzz is an iconoclast. Like he's maybe to a fault, like to where he'll maybe like claim that something is new and interesting and different when it's like, it's already been happening for a long time. But in general, Buzz is a very creative, think outside the box, not following the crowd kind of person. I mean, that's just, I don't know if you've met Buzz, but yeah. It's just evident like anytime you have a conversation with him. And that's probably like a trait that I respect most in people. It's just like not only being willing to think for yourself, but then kind of like actuate that in the world in some way, like, I don't know. It's just, I find those people interesting. Yeah.
And then, but for you, like if you're picking a project, it seems to me like you really place a premium on really getting to know a route.
Yeah.
And then like for you, the investment is like just seeing how much you can self-improve in that arena versus like he might go do the JMT, but then like never touch it again.
Yeah. And it's not that I want to like necessarily go back to a route, but I really, one of like a high value for me is my relationship with the place. And running has always been that for me. I mean, really, like since I started doing it. And now I find that to be the much more important thing for me than performance. Performance is sort of this excuse to develop that relationship. But there's so much emphasis in the sport right now currently placed on performance, because I get it. Like it's an athletic pursuit, and the front of the pack, the sharp, tip of the spear, whatever. That's kind of where it's like the aspirational, like people get excited because they see, it's just, it's wow. But myself personally, I'm just at a point in my life where performance isn't as like interesting to me, I guess. And so I'm much more interested in like my connections to a given landscape and like the community around it. Yeah.
Does competition fall in the same bucket as performance for you?
No, those are two separate things for me. Well, obviously there's overlap, but competition can exist without performance. Like you can, I think there's value in competition. I really like competition, but you don't have to compete. In order to compete, you don't have to be monomaniacally optimizing for performance. Does that make sense? Like you can still go give your best effort, which is what I think competition is about, with a group of people, without making your whole purpose be performing at your personal highest level.
Do you, just observing the sport, and again, I don't want to like implicate any single person, but do you get the sense that that is the dominant culture in the sport right now?
Yeah. What, performance?
And just sort of like exalting the monomaniacal focus towards it too.
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, like top athletes always get the most attention, which I think is fine. Like that's, but yeah, there is, I think just in American culture, high performance is venerated, and that's, it's just not, it's not interesting for me, because at a certain point, like I'm just not interested in like reducing the human to a math equation, like that's not why I run, to like run a computer program and like, figure out the algorithm and like this much salt and this much carbs and, and this much power. It's just like not, I've never been interested in, yeah.
Were your contemporaries like the Joe Grants and the Scotts and Hal's, like what was their MO by comparison?
I mean everyone's an individual. Scott was highly competitive. I would consider myself highly competitive at the time, but again, there's a difference between that and performance.
Would Scott have fallen in this current bucket of like the monomaniacal performance?
Would Scott have?
Yeah.
Probably, actually. Yeah. But I think he always had it was just like so much more of a fringe sport back then. I mean, it's still a fringe sport, but 20 years ago, it was really fringe. And like that, you just had this thing. But I mean, Scott was organizing his life around, in the 2000s, winning Western States every year. And then like once he had that on lock after a couple of years, then he branched out into like, he did Badwater a couple of times while he did Western States. He started doing other things too. But I think it was like more experimental, he was coaching himself. And I don't know, the sport more than anything is like, self-exploration, I would say. And Scott was probably engaged in that a little more rigorously than someone who's, I don't know. I don't want to like.
No,
It's it's so easy. I don't think that there's like the sport's in a bad place right now. It's just we all like change over time, and for me personally, I find optimizing for performance to be uninteresting at this point in my life.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons why I ask is, again, I'm a fan of the sport, and I like to observe just how different personalities exist in it. And I think there's a really cool tension going on where, yes, there is that camp, but then there's like the camp of people that they're good at the sport, but they also bring this like liberal arts, like literate perspective to the mountains.
Yeah.
And I would put you in that camp. I would put, like, we just had this guy, Ben Deeman, on the podcast. He's racing UTMB, but like he brings that too. Mm-hmm. Like people like Versteeg. I don't know. It's just, I think it's interesting. And like, I think the reason I ask this stuff is I'm always wondering, like, if you set aside just like personal preferences and whether or not you want to engage with something, are you worried about like just like community-wide consequences if a certain like mode of operation takes over?
Maybe I'm not community minded enough, but I don't really care what happens to the community. Like, it doesn't keep me up at night, Like what keeps me up at night is if I can't go running. But it makes me feel like an asshole.
You're a conscientious objective.
I just think it's fine. Like no one is like legislating how you exist in the mountains, I mean, there are certain levels. It's like,
Micolino would object to that.
What's that?
Micolino Sunseri would object to that.
That's what I was going to say. There are instances where this is a problem. But generally speaking, broadly speaking, you get to choose how you go into the mountains, and the individual does. And that's, I don't know. You can't, but I mean, it can be frustrating, I guess, because then when you do connect with certain aspects of a scene or a community or a sport, you're like, oh yeah, this is cool, and like you really get like excited about it, and then when there is this more overwhelming narrative of, I mean, how much sugar you can eat,
yeah,
it's just like, oh, who cares?
Yeah.
Like who became like a runner to like, I don't know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you like do you run to like eat sugar and salt and
definitely not.
No, like it's like that's not what the experiences are. Sure, that stuff facilitates those experiences, but it's weird when that becomes like the overriding conversation, and when really I think like the experience itself, the emotions, the connections you have, that's the stuff that like I don't know, that's what keeps you coming back.
This is something I was talking about with Ben Deeman, because we're both sort of like from the through hiking background, and I'm not that old. I'm in my mid 30s, but like when I was on the trail 15 years ago, the dominant conversations, at least in the groups that I was with, was like, let's talk about Walt Whitman, let's talk about Thoreau, let's talk about like that aspect of being outdoors.
Yeah.
And now I get the sense that it's like relating to ourselves as like machines, and it's like, what pack are you using? Like, why'd you go with Hyperlight over ULO or Osprey? And like that is what keeps people flowing down the trail. So it's just interesting. If we come back to like, again, some of this personal project stuff, I'd love to hear you use like, whether it's the LA Freeway or Long's Peak Tri or something in the Flatirons, like I'd love to hear you talk about sort of like the refinement and revision aspect to getting to know a place when you're on these projects, and just like how that practically looks. Like when you're on the freeway last summer, like how does that practically look?
Well, there you have to think about a few factors like that go into having a good experience out there, and one of those is acclimation altitude. So I just spent a lot of time on Long's Peak 14er. It's this first mountain on the LA Freeway, and it's like the most easily accessible too, because that whole thing is in wilderness or in a national park. So it's like there's no easy entry points to get up there. So just a lot of laps on that peak, and then you have to like scout the technical sections because it's really easy to lose a lot of time, and the time piece is just. It's just like this kind of like forcing factor to gain intimate knowledge of a place, and that's probably why, because I did this run, let's see, in between, so I did the freeway like this week last year, And then 10 days later, or a week later, I did a long run on trail because I was going to Grindstone. And all summer I'd just been like off trail. And I was like, well, I'm going to go run 100 miles on trail. I should maybe like try running on trail. And it was a really cool run in the Indian Peaks. It's a classic loop outside of Boulder, Buchanan Pawnee Pass loop. And I added on some to make it 40 miles. But it was the only run I did all summer where that was just like, I'm trail running, like I'm on the trail, I'm on a trail the entire time. I'm running, not every step, but like a very linear motion, versus kind of like the full body and mind engagement of being off trail on very complicated terrain, using, arms and legs to, get through a zone. And it's just funny, like, it's just like not that interesting to go for a run. Like you go places in your mind, obviously, but I just want to like I want to be amongst it. I don't want to just be like on this defined trail. I want to be on the ridge line, scrambling across the talus field. I don't know. That's just me. And I spent a long time as like, call it only a trail runner. And focusing my entire year around races, and that's fine. But I think it's also fine to change, to like evolve. This is not what you asked, though.
No, this is.
I just like this is like
no, it is. And like as a follow up, I'm curious to understand the extent to which your need to have like an emotional connection to the project or the course, like for it to be worth celebrating, has evolved over the years.
Yeah, it's become paramount. Earlier in my career, say when I was here racing UTMB, I was racing it because it was the pinnacle of the sport. It was like the de facto 100-mile world championship. I think now it really is, And so I was just like looking for external validation, which is fine, especially in your 20s, 30s even, But I think you just like grow beyond that at a certain point.
I know the injury stuff, like it would be an understatement to say that it sucks, but at least it sounds like you're pretty free in terms of what you can do project wise. Whereas a lot of people that we talk to.
You mean like in terms of like latitude with like sponsorships and stuff, or what?
Yeah, unless coincidentally people love UTMB or Western States, there's very little expression in the professional side of the sport right now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty cool.
For
you?
Oh, for me, yeah. No, I feel very fortunate. I don't know. I think that I've been doing it a long time, and so you kind of have a legacy at a certain point, and then so that just gives you like the freedom to like do stuff that's not purely performance oriented. Maybe, I don't know.
I think you wrote about this when you first got on the bike, but can you talk about your understanding of Bill Briggs in the Boulder scene and how he's influenced everything we're talking about here?
Well, I mean, it's just...
And who is he for people that don't know?
Yeah. So there's a pair of brothers, in Boulder, Roger Briggs and Bill Briggs, and they grew up in Boulder, went to Boulder High, and then like Bill went on to become a math professor at CU, and his brother Roger was a physics high school teacher and then cross country coach at Fairview High in Boulder. But they were both just like, I would say, consummate like mountain athletes in a way that is more rare these days. Just like very advanced climbers, but also really into running. Like Bill's brother Roger, for instance, he's climbed the Diamond on Longs Peak over 100 times. He has first ascents up there. He has first free ascents all over Boulder. He was like part of like the free climbing kind of revolution in climbing during the 1970s, like in El Dorado Canyon and the Flatirons, which just means instead of pulling on gear to get through a crux, you just pull on the rock. I don't know. Not free soloing, although Roger did that too. But he also at a certain point had a very fast time, like running round trip on Longs Peak. I can't think of anybody right now who could be climbing like 512, 513 and also running really close to 2 hours flat on Long's Peak. There's people who are capable of it, but there aren't people doing it, you know? Yeah, I don't know. Someone like Benjamin Verdurins is sort of first one that comes to mind. It's like someone who's, he just set the Mont Blanc record this spring.
Yeah.
Like super fit, but also a very strong climber. So I don't know. So guys like Roger and Bill. His brother Bill wasn't as strong of a climber, but they both just did. But he was maybe more into like the foot travel stuff, like doing like big like peak link ups, and he had this. It's like one of the coolest projects I can think of. What do you call it? Spam BC, I think. Self-powered ascent of mountains in Boulder County. Yeah. So basically, starting from his doorstep in Boulder, he would ride his bike up onto the Continental Divide and like summit peaks. And so his goal was to climb every peak in Boulder County under human power. It was pretty cool.
And from what I understand, I don't want to say you thought you knew everything there was to know about the scene, but it sounds like when you got on the bike and you learned about him, he kind of opens the aperture on how deep the mountain culture is there.
Oh, I mean, I didn't. So, I mean, I started riding the bike seriously a decade ago. And at that point, and this was right around the same time, like all this stuff kind of opened up to me, I would say 2011, 2012, when I broke my leg and just became interested in stuff beyond just running. So you should just like start seeing like, oh, who are these people like doing this and doing that? And you're like, oh, like this name comes, this guy's done it. Or like my buddy Bill Wright, who like he really was the one who started keeping track of speed records, and then FKT grew out of that with Buzz and Peter. But so yeah, you just kind of like get interested in the scene and start learning like there's other ways to be in the mountains than just running a trail, I guess. Yeah.
How does that, again, like adding that to your toolkit or just the way you interact with the space, the self-powered piece?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just thinking right now, actually, I'm not doing this in Chamonix because this is built at human scale and it's nice to like go out your door and like get to exactly what you need to do without driving it. But like when I go back to Salt Lake, it's very much urban, even though the mountains are right there. Like I have to drive to a trailhead.
Yeah.
Like
this is the problem with Salt Lake, dude.
It is.
I know you're like always trying to sell Salt Lake, but like
I know
this is the problem with Salt Lake.
It is the problem with Salt Lake, and it's also the problem like in so many places. But like reading your stuff on this and reading up on like Bill Briggs, like I start to think like from here on out, why would I ever drive somewhere just to go running? You know what I mean? Because
I mean, I spent the whole summer commuting an hour, like 2 hours round trip to go run out in Long's Peak. And it's because you're looking for a certain experience, and that's not an experience that you're going to get like from your doorstep.
But you could bike there. It'd be a crazy
I could,
bike.
but it's like, Jesus Christ.
It would be a crazy bike.
It's a trade-off. You only have so much time and energy, And if you're putting a lot of that into the bike, you're going to be able to put less into running or like into relationships or like work or whatever, like, so it's just always, I understand the need to drive and I do plenty of it. But there is just like something more gratifying and more, I don't know, it's just like a richer experience if you're doing it all yourself, like with your legs, I guess.
I promise I'm going somewhere with this.
It's not sustainable on a daily basis, I don't think. It's not practical.
Yeah. All right. You have to pick one of the two: the Grand Teton area or the Wind Rivers area, and why?
For what though? For like living or for running or
for just being a mountain athlete? And why for you?
Geez. Probably, I'm just thinking about the logistics of life. The Tetons are a little easier because it's not like the winds they're kind of, it's like a deep range. Like there's long approaches to get to stuff. I'm talking like 10, 15 miles from the trailhead, to get back into the mountains to where you're then going to climb and that kind of thing. It's interesting because like in the southern winds, just for climbing, you have Sinks Canyon, like Wild Iris, and like, these other areas like you could crag at. But for what we're talking about, like big mountain stuff, the Tetons are a little more accessible. Both of them, man, winter is long. The season is short. I already think that the season in Colorado is super short, like the summer season. And this is the season, like I ski and everything, but I'm not good at it. I'm not skilled at it. The summer season is really where I thrive. It's just like this, as simple as can be in the Alpine. And man, the further north you go, it just gets shorter and shorter, to where like the Grand Teton is something that you're climbing in a pair of shorts and a pair of shoes like 2 months out of the year, F that. So yeah.
What makes the Teton special to you?
Accessibility, vertical relief, and the granite, like the rock, like they're not falling down. It's like good alpine granite. So there's just, and it's just how certain ranges form. Like there's just the alpine scrambling potential is super high there.
Yeah.
Which is really good. Yeah. But it's crazy. Like from like the Snake River to the summit, it's like 7.5K a vert. So that kind of thing is just, it's visually striking and it attracts you to it,
Were you there with Kilian for one of his like Kilian's Quest projects?
Yeah. So early, this would have been 2012. He was doing like a series. I think he was like, kind of just running out of ideas. And it's like,
like now he's back to the U.S. doing that 14ers project. Have you heard about this?
Of course, yeah.
No,
I've been in communication with him about it, and kind of bummed because he's starting next week, like on Longs Peak, and we had been talking about like me joining him for some of it, and then he was asking about coming to California to join him for some of it, but I just don't think my Achilles is gonna. I don't know. I could get into this, but I don't.
No, please.
I think Kilian's an amazing athlete. He's been a huge inspiration for me. I think he's a huge inspiration for everyone. I just don't like the style that he did either the Alps in or what he's like planning on doing in the States. I don't understand why he's riding a bike if he has a support vehicle. It just doesn't make sense to me. But personal choice, whatever.
And it was similar for the Pyrenees as well?
I don't know. No, I think the Pyrenees, I'm not sure. Was he using a bike at all in the Pyrenees?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay. But there was a support vehicle like at points?
I'm not sure about that. There had to have been. It'd be pretty tough to do that self-supported. But I just think when you introduce a bicycle, it's like that's the vehicle, right? And so you should be self-supported. You should be doing everything off the bike, carrying all your stuff. It doesn't allow him to do the long traverses that he did in the Alps and that he's planning on doing in the States, because it's point to point then instead of a loop. But at least, I don't know, you're doing it all yourself then. I just don't understand. It becomes like an exercise competition instead of like an expedition or like a, like this self, how do you want to say it? Like this autonomous pursuit, I guess, And I'm not saying that you shouldn't. People can do whatever they want. I just don't think it's a style that I would never be interested in doing. That's probably the simplest way to put it.
First thing that comes to mind for me is,
it's like, why are you riding the bike? I don't understand why you're riding the bike.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, why aren't, like, especially like, okay, like Emily and the kids are going to be there. Cool, just get in the van.
Yeah.
Like, why pedal to the next speed?
Yeah.
Like, why? It doesn't make any sense.
The other piece to me is I'm sure they are documenting this, right?
They forgot what?
They're documenting this, I'm assuming.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So
Well, that's super cool. I want him to document. I want to watch, because I want to watch the document that comes out, But you can document something and not use that as support.
Right.
Like, it obviously, anytime you document something, it changes the experience. But when the ground rules for your experience, I mean, everything we do is contrived. Like we choose the difficulty in all of it. But I guess for me, the experience I would be interested in having there is one of like this journey where like I'm doing everything myself. Like it's not human powered if someone's shuttling your bike from one end of the range to the other, or shuttling your climbing gear from one end of the range to the other. Like, so just get away from that term. Just be like, oh well, I want to like go exercise a lot.
Is it for you? Is this problematic because there was like another version of Kilian like at a different point in his career that wouldn't have done this or would have done?
Oh no, I don't know about that.
Okay.
No, I don't think that's the case. No, what does become problematic though is when, say, like his effort in the Alps last summer gets compared to Uli Steck's effort, and everyone's like, "Well, he did it 6 weeks faster." Oh my God! I mean, Kilian is amazing. He is really like without parallel or like without comparison in the world of mountain athletes. But they weren't doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like Uli was. The reason he wasn't doing all these big connections is because like he had to come back to his bike and then pedal his bike with all his climbing gear on it, and like and then you mentioned Joe Grant earlier. There was this thing in Colorado called the Tour de 14ers. That number, like 3 people just this summer have done it, but it's self-supported.
Okay.
You like close the loop, you start and finish, you live on the bike, you do everything yourself, and so when Kilian started next week goes and laces the Colorado 14ers in 2 weeks or something instead of the month that it takes someone to do Tour 14ers, there's going to be that comparison point. It's like, but it's not the same. They're not playing the same game, But that's not to say that if Kilian went and did Tour 14ers, he'd go really fast. He'd probably go a week faster than anyone else has ever done it. But you know what I'm saying? So just like, and you can be like, oh, who cares about any of this? But like, these are the games we play.
Yeah,
like this is like nothing means anything if we don't like have some kind of ground rules, like. So I don't know.
In what ways has Kilian been influential on how you see the sport or approach it?
Oh, just
like what comes to mind? Like what? Like
I would say like minimal. Like self-reliance on the Alpine. I mean, I wouldn't say Kilian pioneered this, but he certainly made it known to a wider. He pushed the boundaries on this of just like doing things as minimally as possible, like with as little gear as possible, very quickly, very lightly, in the Alpine. Yeah. I mean, when he was living here in Chamonix, like the stuff he did here is just, it's all crazy. It's insane.
Coming back to the Grand Teton, to the extent that you're comfortable, as all the stuff with Micolino was unfolding.
Yeah.
What was your take on that?
Oh, geez, we gotta do this, huh? All right. It's just pretty obvious that he was like being made an example, or someone had an axe to grind with him within the, I guess, federal justice system. Like it's crazy. Like the proportionality is just like so. It's like a cartoon or something. It's like, whoa, what are we doing here? Someone was angry at the fact that there's people running in the park. Period. Beyond that, I don't know. I don't think there's anything to be like learned from any of this. It's like really like we're worried about the environmental degradation that comes from cutting this switchback when there's everything else in the world. Like maybe don't have one of those vendors in the national park. Like it's just like it's crazy. There's no justification in my mind.
So again, and this is new to me too, would you say that there's been a history generally, even for rule following, the park has been like anti-runners and anti-speed?
I don't know. I'm not a local to Jackson Hole, and apparently it comes down to the region. It's much different than Rocky Mountain, and I don't know. Hopefully it's something like the attitude that I don't know what was going on in Grand Teton National Park, but my mind was blown, I guess, at how this is just taken so out of proportion. Because to me, like what Micolino did on the Grand is just like he did everything right in my book in terms of I think his record lap a year ago was like his 44th lap on the mountain. Not that season, but like over a course of like 4 years or something.
He was immersed in it.
Yeah, 100%. Like what he was doing there is exactly what I enjoy doing in the mountains and like what I respect people doing in the mountains, which is like developing a deep relationship with a place and then challenging yourself to like show up as like, you know, the highest version of yourself on a given day and, you know, give a go at something. And it's frustrating because the media picks it up and people who like, I think are even like accomplished mountain athletes or have spent a lot of time in the mountains, they see a headline of like runner cut switchback, you know, in pursuit of FKT, and just immediately are like, oh, this guy was cheating, and like blah 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 blah. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, like just pause for a second, and like educate yourself a little bit on the situation before you just like jump to this like. But we're humans, we have to like. We have so much coming at us all the time. Like you have to assimilate information. And so I get it when people just jump to like this very negative conclusion maybe from a headline like that. But yeah, I think from what I understand about the situation, which I could be wrong, I don't know. I respect what Micolino was trying to do. I mean, if we're being as honest as possible though, it'd have been real close if he hadn't taken the shortcut for getting the record. You know, like it's a half-mile shorter. He was 2.5 minutes faster than the record. He was running about 5-minute pace on the downhill. Like it would have been really tight. But I just think that should be the record route. But I mean, but it's a non-starter now. Like you can't. Like it's done. Like it's been litigated literally, and yeah. Can't take the shortcut.
This would have been it was
I don't even like calling it a shortcut because it's just a different trail. Like it's not, nothing's being cut. You're just taking a different trail.
To that point, because this would have been 10 or 12 years ago, do you remember when Kilian had that issue at Speed Goat?
Yeah, I was there.
You were there.
Yeah.
Like, what was your reaction to that? Was it similar?
You got to follow the rules.
Okay.
It's a sanctioned event.
Yeah,
like,
sanctioned.
Everyone's trying to play by the same rules, you know? To me, the rule on a mountain FKT like that is get to the top and back down as fast as you can under your own power by whatever means. That's to me the rule of an FKT, but in this specific instance, like you have to be sensitive to the local area. And if they want you to stay on the trail, you need to stay on the trail. But Micolino like consulted with Andy beforehand, I guess still the current record holder, Andy gave him the belt buckle.
Yeah.
Like no one thinks that like Micolino has the record. So yeah, but in the case of a race like Speed Goat, yeah, you gotta follow the course, of course.
Well, the reason I ask is because I was on the UTMB course last week, and like I was at the top, you know, I was at Col de Bonhomme, and I was making that descent into Le Chapeau, and there's all sorts of ways that you can go down that trail.
Wait, was this on the Chapeau? Yeah, no, that one's so messed up. I mean, I haven't been on it in years.
Yeah,
but there's just like, it's just weaves everywhere.
You could follow the switchbacks, you could cut straight through, and like my buddy Jimmy, who's with me, who did the race in 22, he's like,
there's like not even really a way to know what is the trail.
And he's like, people were just taking the most direct way.
100%.
And that's the culture at UTMB.
Yeah. I would say that's just like the culture in, most European races. But it's, I don't know. I mean, maybe they marked the course differently than a dozen years ago, but I don't think there's like a flag at the end of each switchback that you're supposed to take or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, that is an instance where it's just like, you see the hut down there. Yeah. There's all these like anastomosing, basically cattle tracks. I think maybe cattle do graze there actually. Yeah. That's probably part of the reason it's so messed up. But yeah.
This is something that I've just generally been curious about for your career. To what extent has the skyrunning scene, especially in Europe, to what extent has that resonated with you? And I guess I don't even know to the extent to which you participated in it.
Yeah, so that's
given your interests, like, you know.
Yeah, no, there was a period in time where like this is the highest ideal of competitive mountain running for sure. That started in the 90s, I'm pretty sure, because Matt Carpenter was a part of all that, along with a lot of other athletes. But and really what it was just like going to these technical places as fast as you can. When you're like racing up and down Monte Rosa, like it's a glacier travel, and a race like that still exists, and that's cool because it adds in this whole like other technical element that's not running down a trail. But in 2012, the Skyrunning organization brought a bunch of athletes. God, I don't know, 30 of us, something like that, 40 of us, all to Transvolcania. And there's a week-long like summit basically about like where Skyrunning is and where it should go and this kind of thing. And then everyone raced Transvolcania at the end of the week. And then 2 weeks later, everyone went to Zagama. And I was injured, of course, but I was at all that. At that point in time, that's where all the energy in the sport was in Skyrunning. And they like instituted like the ultra aspect of it at that point too, like 50K races. And so that was kind of seen as like the ideal then. I think that's where all the energy was in the sport. And then UTMB was the ultra stuff, so Skyrunning was like sub 80K because they had expanded into 50Ks. I think it's cool.
Did you hop in any events at all, like over the last?
Did I do any sky races? I don't think I did.
Like the Minotaur or anything like that?
No. I'm just trying to think what events there were. I don't think I did a single sky race. And it just came down to health usually, and then like I'm not good at shorter distances. I don't think I was ever world class in anything sub 5 hours, and really it needed to be like in that 5 to 8 hour range before I could start being world class. So yeah.
And then to me, it's crazy that when we try again, when we tried it in the U.S., our version of it was just like the ski resorts.
Was what?
It was at the ski resorts. It was like.
Well, that's because that's where you can get permits for it, which I totally get. I'm not out here like trying to. The mountains exist. You can go out there and do what you want in them. Typically, you don't have to have an event. I don't know. I guess like the stuff that interests me is, I'm just like going out and doing what would be a sky race, but like on my own,
Okay. What are you reading right now?
I was like, where are you going? I am reading Thomas Wolfe's A Man in Full.
Is that the Bonfire of Vanities guy?
It's the Bonfire of the Vanities. It's his 1990s. That's the 80s, and this is the 1990s novel. Okay. Yeah.
What's this one about?
Same stuff.
Just for the 90s?
Yeah, race, class.
Okay.
Politics. Yeah, those are the main things. Just like the intersection of wealth, like socioeconomic class, status, race. Yeah.
What are you taking from it right now?
So it's the second time I've read it, and I am less impressed with Thomas Wolfe as a writer this time around. Yeah, it almost feels like kind of cringy or something. Like it's cool because the subject matter is like as relevant. It's disappointing that it's as relevant 30 or 40 years later as it was then, in the 80s and 90s. It's just all the same stuff. It's like it could be like ripped from the headlines today, But I don't know. I guess why do you read fiction? Is to like get to be like in a different world, to like have a different perspective presented to you, and I don't know, connect with it in some way.
Is Mother Night by Kurt Vonnegut still the most influential book you've ever read?
Did I say that at some point?
Yeah.
What is the book?
Mother Night by Kurt Vonnegut.
Where did I say that? I don't think I've.
Dude,
if you had told me that I had read that, I would not have been sure.
You said it in an Outside magazine interview with. That
sounds like some pretentious bullshit.
Dude. And the quote you used was, and I wrote this down: "We are what we pretend to be, we must be careful about what we pretend to be."
Okay, that's just like the most like famous Vonnegut. So I probably just like knew that was a Vonnegut quote, and it was like, no, I mean, I've read the book, I guess, but. That's just sort of like the source of, everyone quotes that from Vonnegut, because that whole book, it's Okay, so yeah, I mean, I've read it. It's coming back to me now. But it's talking about like if you were to like be pretending to be a Nazi, how is that different than being a Nazi? You know, it's not. Like, you got to be careful. You know, this is the problem with irony, is like all trends start as being ironic. It seems like, until that just becomes what everyone does. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it with sincerity then, you know?
That's scary, and that's why I think the conversation earlier about...
What do you think 90s Oakleys are about? People were doing that shit ironically 10 years ago, but now it's like, that's what's cool.
No, and that's why I'm nervous, not nervous, that's why I think it's worthwhile talking about, you know, your concern that we're like over-indexing into like the performance side of the sport.
Oh, interesting. No one's ironically like eating 150 grams of carbs an hour.
No, there are influencers out there that are doing that, I'm sure.
It's like ironically getting diabetes.
The McDonald's challenge.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean? Like, you're right there. There are people doing it ironically. That's just why I don't. Maybe I'm just getting old and crotchety, but like I'm not into irony.
And just so the audience knows.
And that's what that quote, I think. To me, that's where I take that quote from Vonnegut, is like, A, your actions matter, and B, an action done with sincerity or not, there's no difference. You're still acting, you know? Yeah. And so like, be careful what you do. Yeah.
And for the audience, just so they know like what the hell I'm doing here and why, like as I was researching this episode, I found just a bunch of crazy tidbits about you like on Facebook and Instagram, like way back in the day. And like, I did brief you on some of the stuff just so you knew that it was coming. And one of the crazy, and again, there wasn't like a conclusion to this. I don't even know where you went after the fact, but you had this write-up in your blog where I guess it was the year that Kyle Skaggs set the course record at Hard Rock. Okay. And you guys were hanging out at the Grand Canyon. You were living out of Deerslayer, the car. It was this like Toyota Corolla van-ish car. And
no. Apparently it's like a station wagon. It'd be like a Ford Focus or something.
I want to know what happened. Like, apparently he just got anxious and like left for Silverton, like left you at the Grand Canyon or something?
No. I think you're conflating a couple different stories here. So, I gotta remember. We must have been down there in the same vehicle. I don't remember.
And why was it called Deerslayer? Why was it called Deerslayer?
Because Kyle hit deer with it. He hit a deer with it, and so there was some damage to the front end. So here is a story about the Deerslayer, and maybe this is what you're thinking of. But so that would have been 2008. Was that? Yeah, 2008. We were down in the Grand Canyon in the spring. Scott was down there too, and we were maybe we were down there for like 2 weeks. But basically, we're just like running as much as we could every day. And the reason we were there is because the Grand Canyon's snow-free vert. You know, there's a lot. And that's like what Kyle was into. Wanted to like get as much vert as possible going into Hard Rock that year. And but he was also getting antsy about like wanting to get the altitude. So that's like, yeah, he went to the San Juans. But anyways, that fall, it would have been September. So I lived in Leadville that whole summer. Kyle was down in Silverton. He was headed to Ashland, Oregon, Southern Oregon. And so he was driving up, and on the way to the Front Range to catch a flight to like Medford, he hit a deer outside of Buena Vista, like a mile or two from Buena Vista, but it totaled his car. Because, you know, it was a shitty car anyways. And I just remember it was pissing rain that night. So I was living in my truck at the time up in Leadville. So I drove down, picked him up, and we basically had to like clean out his car. He had like everything that he owned with him basically because he was going to Oregon. And I don't know what he was planning on doing with the car before. I don't know if he was going to drive there or not. But anyways, he basically abandoned the car and like whatever I wanted of his stuff I could have. And I remember I took a bunch of his CDs, like like compact discs, like his whole music collection. Yeah, he just left his car in Buena Vista, and I dropped him off on the bus to get down to DIA the next morning, and he like flew to Medford. Well, then Ashland. But yeah, that was the deer slayer. That was just his car.
That was the end of the car.
That was the end of the car. He left in Buena Vista. Yeah. But so that wasn't the first deer he had hit, but the deer ultimately slayed the deer slayer too. So, yeah.
One of the ways you described him, or one of the ways that you understood his hard rock course record to be possible, was the extent to which he could like disassociate or have the sense of like non-attachment to pain and just like the demands of the course. Do you still agree with that? Like, is that
something I wrote?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Does that match your like understanding of what he was like as a runner?
No, that's funny. That's weird. I wonder if I'd like to go back and read that. This is something in my blog.
Yeah.
That's not how I would think of Kyle. I think that there are runners who, man, for lack of any kind of nuance, maybe they're just like not very smart.
Goldfish mentality.
Yeah, like there's like a little bit dumb, or they're able to make themselves a little bit dumb. But I don't know. Did you know anyone? Did you race in high school?
I played like basketball, football.
Okay, but so you knew athletes though?
Yeah.
And like I just feel like when you're in high school, there's much more awareness around like who's smart and who's not, like who has like basic intelligence, like book smarts, that kind of thing. And sometimes the kids who aren't at the top of the class grade wise, like they're amazing athletes, and part of it's like they can just like turn their brain off and like not over intellectualize things. Kyle's a very cerebral human, like very intellectual person, and so I wouldn't put him in that category at all. I remember having a conversation with his brother Eric at one point about this very issue, not about Kyle, but about someone else in the sport. And he's like, yeah, I think he's just a little bit dumb, and he can just like run really hard, like, and if you knew Eric, like, and both Eric and Kyle are like, yeah, they're like smart, intellectual, like interesting humans,
So do you think this is interesting? Do you think generally, is it a disadvantage to be like smart in sports?
I don't know. I don't think it's a disadvantage, but it can be a hindrance sometimes. Like it's not necessarily a disadvantage, but if you don't have the ability to turn off like that intellectualization or reflection, man, I think you just get in your head too much during a race. And like, sometimes you just gotta like, yeah, exactly. The goldfish thing, just like, this is my task. Like the pain doesn't matter. I mean, that's ultimately what this sport is. It's just like,
Can you do that in your projects?
Can I do that?
Yeah. Can you turn it on?
It's different because they're not at the same like bleeding edge of physical performance.
The freeway, you didn't have to.
No, you can't go to that spot because there's no safety net. Here, that's the luxury of racing, is like there's this whole like infrastructure set up for you to try as hard as you possibly can. Whether it's your crew, the aid stations, like literally like search and rescue. I mean, you can call search and rescue in something like the freeway, but it's a process. Like you're gonna be hanging out for hours before a helicopter shows up.
That to me is a fascinating question, and maybe you have an example, you know the answer, but to your knowledge, what is the most unsafe FKT on record? Like where someone really treated it like a race setting, as if it was a race setting, and they did shut off that brain piece of it, and like you were like, oh my gosh, like you were really on the edge there of safety. Like,
I don't have a comprehensive enough, like, I know what you're saying.
I wonder if there's a record out there that is going to be unbeatable because someone was willing to go to that space.
That's an interesting, yeah, I actually like, that's, the first thing that came to mind, but I don't know, it's crazy, like what goes on in the alpine climbing world. It just makes ultrarunning look so tame, it's just like, in ultrarunning, you can stop whenever you want. Like literally whenever you want. It's not a big deal. Like sure, it's inconvenient for some people, but like not that inconvenient even. But like what people do in alpine climbing, it's literally life or death a lot of the time. Like the stakes are so high, and it's just like, going without sleep for 2-3 days. You've run out of food. maybe maybe you didn't, maybe you never brought a stove, so you can't even melt snow to make water. Like it's crazy what people do, and it's just like it's almost considered normal, And in an ultra running, it's like, oh, my legs hurt. It's like, and you drop out. It's like, okay.
I mean, that reminds me, like, we're in Chamonix this week for UTMB, and in many ways it's a reunion. Like, we're seeing all these people that we know, but also this place in other sports is like a graveyard, right? Like, if you were in the climbing world, every single successive year you come back, there's a really strong chance that you're definitely not seeing like 2 or 3 people.
Well, Sham's weird because it's sort of like the cradle of alpinism. It's like where it's birthed, 300 years ago. But it's also such a touristy spot that like there's a lot of inexperienced people like getting in over their head too. And so it's this weird mix of like the very highest level of the sport goes on here, but then there's just like Gumby Central, like there's helicopters flying all the time making rescues because people are getting themselves in trouble. I don't know, but anyways, just the alpine climbing thing. The first thing that came to mind to me was when Kilian summited Everest twice without oxygen the same week, and I think he was having a lot of physical issues. But a mountain like Everest like has a lot more kind of like safety infrastructure than a lot of other peaks do actually, and I don't know, FKT is a super broad world. I don't know.
Maybe the last question before we go, or last topic, because I think one of the things you've been, at least the way I understand it, all these other sports, climbing, mountaineering, cycling, just being in the alpine, it's kind of one of those things where it's like once you've experienced it, you can see how it's like less and less interesting to come back to running. For people like me who have constantly been peppering you with questions about like what's the next race, when are you coming back, are you at a point in your career where like you don't even feel this need or urge or interest to come back to running with all these other opportunities in front of you?
Yeah, I don't. I love running. I'll always do it. I love like what it facilitates for me in my life, and in terms of like just being able to get places. And I love the act of it. But I don't know. I did the whole competition thing, and I'm just still, I would say, like a transitional period in my life, but it's not what gets me the most excited, like at all anymore. It's
I can't see you doing Rocky Raccoon ever again.
That's a perfect example. Nope. I can't either. Like, why? That's purely. But I mean, I highly value competition still, and that was purely a competition thing. But I mean, the only reason I ever did Rocky was like external motivations. It was never intrinsically motivated. It's, and I think that there needs to be more nuance with like divorcing like the act of running and like the practice of running from structuring your life to perform at your highest possible level at a race. Those are two very different pursuits. And yeah, the latter is just not my priority. So, yeah.
Well, Anton, seriously appreciate the time. Always a pleasure. And to the extent that it's possible, hope you get to enjoy the week and
cool.
enjoy the time in Cham.
Yeah, thanks, Finn. Always fun to chat.